Well, greetings, church family. Grace and peace to you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I come to you with this Midweek Connection, knowing that last week I was unable to post because of a number of things going on in my own spirit and mind concerning what's been happening in our local community and nationally. And without going into a ton of details, locally, our county has been struck by the coronavirus in a more widespread, fast-moving way than it has previously. I've said it time and again in sermons and even on this Midweek Connection that the virus showing up is not an if, it's a when it comes to our county and our communities. And now most recently, it's not an if, it is a when the virus will visit you and your household. And knowing that it would come, knowing that it would have its arrival in a widespread way, still did not prepare me for the reaction of many people in our area. The reaction of fear and of anger, and in some cases, outright hatred, which led to division. And it was a very painful time for a number of people in our community, myself included. While I haven't contracted the virus yet, it was painful to see those who did receive that kind of hatred and anger and division and be caught in the midst of it as they are struggling with a virus in their household. That, depending on who you are, it might do nothing to you, or someone else, it might be life-threatening. And so they have a little bit of fear in their lives because of that, but now they also have to know that they have a number of neighbors who are actively against them during that time. And there was a lot of pain in our community because of that. And that happened locally, and is still happening locally. There's still a lot of fear, and with that comes a lot of pain. And then nationally we also saw an incident where a man's life was unjustly taken from him, where he was murdered in the street as he begged for his life. And people reacted in pain and in fear and in anger. And we're still seeing them react in pain and in fear and in anger. So we saw it locally in our own county, really concerning coronavirus, and we see it nationally also concerning systemic racism and a number of other issues that come along with that. And so today I want to encourage you by, like I did last week. Last week I stopped. I didn't post the midweek update or midweek connection. I didn't pretend to have answers. I stopped. And I tried to understand. I listened. I learned. Last week I reached out to those who the virus was reaching their homes and asked, what can I do for you? How can I be there for you? I'm here for you if you just want to talk. And I listened. I didn't pretend to have answers. I just listened. On the national level, I will never understand what it is like to be a person of color in this country. I will never understand. And so I listened. And I learned. And I didn't pretend to have any answers. I want to encourage you to do the same. You see, when the virus showed up in our county in this widespread way, we had a lot of people react in fear and in anger, but at the root of it was a lot of pain with that fear. And nationally, we see people reacting in fear and in anger, but the root of it is pain. There's a lot of pain. And so I reached out to a colleague. You see, I don't talk about it much, but when my wife and I, when we lived in Kansas City, it's because when you're in rural ministry, if you tell people, well, I used to live in a city of 2 million plus, they think, oh, well, you're just some big city kid. Well, no, I grew up in a small rural town. I've lived in rural areas most of my life. I lived in Kansas City for a couple of years while I did some graduate work. I was doing graduate work. I was working part-time at a church as an associate pastor. And then I also got a job in inner city Jackson County, Kansas City. And I worked for a family court system. I haven't talked about this from the pulpit much or anything like that at this point, but I'm sharing it with you today so that you can get a little bit of the perspective of where I'm coming from. I was the only white guy in my entire department. And I asked my program manager, because I worked with youth that had been picked up for felonies, but deemed not dangerous enough to go into a lockdown facility pending their adjudication or trial. And so they entered into my program, which was a new program that tried to reintegrate them in the school, into home, keep them out of trouble as they're awaiting their trial, so we can show, hey, this kid did one thing, but hasn't done anything since, and we're on the path of rehabilitation and reinsertion into the community to try to avoid essentially what is jail time for youth. And I was the only white guy. And I asked my program manager, well, he had actually just told me, I didn't even ask him. He said, you want to know why I hired you? Because you see people. You see people. You see, I didn't come in there with this lens of, oh, I'm a white guy trying to help out black people. I didn't come in there with this lens of black people are flawed. I didn't come in there with this lens of, oh, I'm somehow inferior to them. I saw people, and I listened to their struggles, and I heard their pain. And I recently called my program manager. I hadn't talked to him in a while, which is unfortunate because he's a wonderful guy. And I just kind of asked him, help me. Help me to understand, help me to be there. I want to listen and I want to learn. And he talked about pain. He said, what we need is a way for people to be able to connect with each other so that even though we'll never fully understand each other, because it doesn't matter if we have different skin color, if we grew up in different communities, if some are poor and some are rich, doesn't matter if you grew up half a world away, all of our experiences make us different. And I know that, excuse me, and he had said what we need are ways to connect each other so we're actually learning from each other. Because without actually connecting with each other, we will never learn. We'll never learn and we'll never be able to grow past these kinds of divides. And so he talked about how pain transcends that. Pain connects us in a way that other things can't. You see, because I'll never understand what it's like to be a person of color. Never will. I'll never understand their pain. But I can better understand my pain and realize that when they're experiencing something painful, there have been times that I have experienced something painful. And that pain will connect us. That through our suffering, we will be better connected. I think that's why in Scripture it tells us that we are to mourn with those who mourn. Because in our pain, in our human experience, we find connection. And pain not only connects us, it also transcends generations. Our stories are told. Painful stories are told, and they connect us. So I've been doing a lot of listening and a lot of learning and a lot of knowing that I don't have answers. A lot of not jumping to conclusions. A lot of not looking at the news and thinking, oh, those people. And I would encourage you to do the same. There are a number of documentaries that you can watch, a plethora of books that you can read, article upon article. Listen, learn, and know that you will never fully understand, but know that there are experiences in your life that will help you connect with other people in a way that transcends everything else, because at the base of it, there's pain. I want you to take a couple of moments and listen to this guy speak. His name is Michael Jr. He's a comedian, but he talks about how pain helped him with a troubling situation. And then after that, I would encourage you just to spend some time in prayer. Look at your own life. Turn off the news. Turn off the TV. Take time to reflect. And then, when you do turn things back on, listen. I'm going to leave you with a number of articles and some documentaries and things like that. I would encourage you, before you turn back on national news, where they're showing you the worst of the worst, take time to learn and listen. In the midst of it all, I think you'll begin to understand why God calls us to mourn with those who mourn. Why God says that those who mourn will be comforted. And why, through trials and through suffering, we will draw closer to Him and draw closer to each other. So listen to Michael Jr., check out the links, and be blessed.
Yo, so I'd like to tell you a story. Story about me. I'm 19 years old, right? I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I am preparing to buy an oil change business with some other guys. I worked as an oil change technician since I was 14 years old, and now I want to buy a business. I want to own my own business. So I'm working like 16 hours a day, working hard, trying to get up enough money to buy this business. Now, I lived in this apartment complex. It wasn't the most sketchy complex, but it wasn't the best complex either. I didn't have any, I was saving every dollar I had. So my apartment complex was, it wasn't that complex. Let me just say that. But across the hall from me was some people who, they didn't look like me, but it was pretty clear to me that they was selling some drugs. In fact, there had been a gas company truck parked outside in our apartment, parking area for a few weeks, but we didn't have gas at all in the apartment. Everything was electric. So I thought that was a little suspicious. And knowing that they were selling drugs or whatever, but I didn't care. I didn't have anything to do with that stuff. I just want to be a business owner at this point. And I remember going to work. I'd work 16 hours. I'm on my way home. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And as I come around the corner, I noticed that the dome light inside that truck was on, and when I bent the corner, it turned off real fast. But listen, I know what this means because I've been in this kind of scenario before. This means that place has probably been raided, and then I also see a bunch of people or legs jumping behind trees and in cars, and suddenly it's quiet. So I know what this is. I know exactly what is going on. It's probably been a bust of some sort. So I park like I normally would because I know I can't just drive off because they're going to fall. I don't know what's going to happen. So I stopped the car, I put it in park, I rolled the window down, and I put both hands out the window. It's completely dark outside right now. You don't see anybody, like nobody's around, like nobody. I stick both my hands out of the window and I say, listen, officers, I want you guys to know I don't have anything to do with why you're here. I just got off work and I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and I'm just going to my apartment. Please understand that. I stick both my hands out the window, and I got both hands out the window, and I slowly open the door. I hear nothing. Nobody responds. It is completely quiet. It is actually too quiet. So I go ahead and I get out of the vehicle, and I get out real slow with both my hands still in the air. And as soon as the door closes, 15, maybe 17 police officers come rushing at me. Now I'm afraid, and they're yelling, "Put your hands up! Put your hands up!" My hands are already up, and they're being extremely aggressive. And here's the thing, though. I understand this because they just did a drug bust. Somebody else is driving up. They gotta check me out and see who I am. I fully get that. Like, that's probably protocol. And then they asked me for my ID, and I didn't have my ID on me. I left it in the counter. Over the stove in my apartment. And I explained to him, hey man, I just don't have it. I was in a rush to get out today. But I don't have anything to do with these drugs. I have nothing to do with those guys. and now aggressively. And there's one police officer in particular who, let's just say, wasn't, he just seemed to not like me extra for whatever reason. And so they're walking me up to my apartment. Like every single step I take, they're taking steps right along with me. And I said, listen, as soon as I use this key to open the apartment, that'll prove to you that I live here and I don't have anything to do with them. And then we'll just go inside. Now keep in mind, I ain't had no money. I got a air conditioner and a mattress on the floor in my apartment. That's all I got. It kind of looked like a crack house. I'm gonna throw that out there. Like it wasn't the best looking scenario. But regardless, when I open my key, that means I have nothing to do with them. I twist the key in my heart and I just take a sigh like, oh, this thing is over. I walk in, the officers bust their way in too. They're demanding to see my identification. And I tell them my ID is over the stove. But I'm not moving because I know if I make any sudden movements, I don't know. I'm pretty afraid at this point. So I walk over to the stove area, super slow. And I explain to them, I'm talking them through what it is I'm going to do. And instinctively, I noticed from growing up that this is what needs to happen. I say, so I'm about to lift up my right hand. I'm reaching into the cabinet. I'm pulling the cabinet door open. Literally, I was walking them through step by step by step. And I reach into the cabinet and I say, now I feel the wallet. I'm about to pull the wallet out. As soon as I say that, that cop, the one I told you about, he takes his gun, puts it to the back of my head right here, and cocks the hammer back. And I'm so afraid and angry and hurt because he could end my life right now and they can come up with some sort of story and nobody ever knows who Michael Jr. is. Just like that. So, I reach, I hold my wallet out like this, and they check my ID. That officer takes his gun off my head, and he leaves. The other officers stick around, and really just trying to make sure I'm not going to complain or call anybody. But who was I going to call? Like, really, who was I going to call? And then they leave. And then I remember sitting on the floor, hurt, in serious pain, and just angry for probably 30 minutes. Then there's a knock on the door and the door busts open and it's the lady from across the hall whose boyfriend or husband has just been taken away for selling drugs. And she's unconsolable. She's crying and screaming. They took everything. And she's speaking like broken English. I don't understand exactly. She's got these 2 little kids with her and she is in pain, hurt, afraid. She doesn't know what to do. And I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, well, you probably should pick a better boyfriend. That's what I'm thinking. But like, she's the reason this just happened to me. But instead, I just listened to her. And even though I couldn't understand everything she was saying, because our pain matched, the communication was way more clear than it should have been. So I reached into my wallet and I had like $14 in change, and I gave her all of the money I had. And she was so grateful. She gathered her kids and they gave me like a hug, and then they left, and she was still kind of crying. But I always thought that her coming to ask for that money was me giving to her, but she actually gave me a gift that's way greater. In that moment when I was so hurt, when I was in so much pain, I was able to see somebody else's pain. And then I found an opportunity where she gave me an opportunity to give to her. I can't tell you what that did for me. Immediately, the pain and the hurt started to subside. Immediately, the pain started to go away, even though I couldn't articulate it in the moment. I should say the anger started to go away. I was still hurt. I was super hurt. But I know that lady gave me a gift that I needed right at that moment. And because of that, I've been able to forgive that officer. Like, I never had a conversation with him, but I don't hold any anger towards him at all, or any officers. Listen, I love people. Like, I love people. And if you have on a uniform, that doesn't mean you're not a person. I love people. But I also know that if we really want to be healed, like if there's a lot of us hurting right now, but I'm telling you, the thing to do is to look for the person next to you who's hurting as well and ask the question, what can I give? If you simply can ask, what can I give? There's healing in that, because the people around you need you right now. They need you to be willing to give, whether it be financially, whether it be understanding, whether it just be a hug, whether it be just to listen. And when you give in such a way, it's going to bring healing to you. The anger, the pain, the hurt will start to subside. That's where the healing takes place. I'm telling you, we need to ask the question, what can I do for someone else? I appreciate you. I love you. Michael Jr.